Hello, welcome to the Oz Wargamer and the Age of Sigmar Stats Center. This is my intro, and I'm joined by the Twitch chat, as you can see here. And today's show, we're going to be looking at a bunch of events from around the world, specifically 6 countries and 254 players. We've got Lord of the Mounds, which we covered on the Objective Zone on Sunday, which you can go and watch on the T Sports Network Twitch account. We had the Bendigo Bush Bash, Shakespeare Invitational, US Open Kansas City, Molehammer, Halloween Spooktacular. There was an event in France with 26 players, but unfortunately they didn't have any lists available to us. So yeah, loads of people playing around the world, and an exciting time for Age of Sigmar. Let's dive into the list. I hope the Geometrica lists have finally started to take shape. Let's find out. Our first event that we're going to be looking at is Lord of the Mounds 6. Now, you might be like, that seems kind of familiar. Well, because this was actually already covered on the T Sports Network's Objective Zone. So every Sunday we cover events from around the world and we live stream in games and then we do some commentary on it. And so we already covered this event. So shout out to Eric, who was running the event, and also Liara, who was our table boss. Danny, who won the event, there's also an interview with him at the end where he talked about his final game. In order to win, he had to play against Stormcast Eternals, and he did some big yeeting with some Gore Grunters. Really fun game. There were some real big moments. I very much enjoyed it. So Danny was running Iron Jaws. He was running Iron Sun, so charging your opponents at the end of your opponent's charge phase. He had a Mega Boss and More Crusher with a Master of Magic and the Arcane Tome. That Arcane Tome actually maybe won him the game. The ability to cast the great big green-handed Gork. He teleported a unit of Gore Grunters. He teleported them outside of 12 inches of his opponent. And because that happens in the hero phase, he then Mighty Destroyed that unit of Gore Grunters, and they moved 9 inches, which means he's 4 inches away from his opponent's back lines, which meant he was able to charge in, killed Law Relictor, and also a... what's it called? My brain has absolutely gone at the start of the show. Come on! Something. It was something. A Stormcast Dragon Rider with a lance. Fulminator! Let's go. Absolutely got there. A very important day 1 results, of course, I will. In the rest of the list, so actually that Master of Magic Great Big Green Handed Cork was incredibly important for the victory. So something to think about there. 2 War Chanters. 3x5 Ard Boys, and they were just in the Battle Regiment, and then 3 units of 6 Gore Grunters that were all in Bounty Hunters. So yeah, just a really solid army. We've seen an Iron Jaws army like this do really well. I think that they're fairly honest. They've got a lot of output. They've got some problems as well. They're definitely going to very much struggle to hit things at the back of the board if you can screen well. Thank you to Fisher Painting for resubscribing, but Smashing and Bashing is quite good. Smashing and Bashing actually got an upgrade in the Battle Scroll because it overrides Strike Glass effects now, which is really, really effective. So great. And big congratulations to Danny for doing so well there. Now Dennis, we saw playing round 1 of Objective Zone yesterday. And he was running Lumineth Realm Lords Geometrica, and he was running Teclis, Avelenor, the Stoneheart King, and an Alarith Stone Mage. Then he had 2 units of 10 Alarith Stoneguard, and then 2 units of 5 Alarith Stoneguard. And then he had the Rune of Petrification, which is a bit of a Josh Jenkins, where he loves running the Rune of Petrification. It's effectively an AoE Mortal Wound Bomb spell. On a 4+, you take D3 Mortal Wounds at the beginning and the end of each movement phase. So it actually can proc twice. So for 40 points, it's pretty nuts how much damage it does. Really nuts how much damage it does, especially when you've got people like Teclis who can cast it on a very high casting value, which is very, very strong. And it's 40 points, so it's basically the points you have left over in your army, roughly. And obviously it keys in really nicely with Teclis' ability to do an AoE damage from Searing White Light, which is his War Scroll spell. So now you've got 2 AoE mortal wound attacks happening at the same time, and then it's just like, let's go. Its points are not perfect, whoever says that. Dennis played this army really well, but he played a great game against Gear, where Teclis died in the first turn, but it didn't really matter. But because he's playing Geometrica, the Stoneguard and also the Stoneheart King, who ignore Rend 1 without ignoring Rend 2. They, as well as a bunch of other bonuses they were getting, like +1 to wound and also +1 to the wounds characteristic of a single unit, and then the Stoneheart King was making enemy units -1 to hit within range. So it's kind of a big defensive castle, and it does a lot of damage in combat, specifically because of the mortal wounds that you get from that with Stoneguard. That are 2 wounds apiece, so they're 20 wounds for a unit of 10 on a 4-up armor save with a 4-up ward when they're near an objective, ignoring mortal wounds, and obviously normally a 5-up ward from Teclis. So a really strong, powerful defensive build, and that's defensive enough that maybe it even can play into Bounty Hunters. If Bounty Hunters goes away in the next GHB, then Stoneguard get even better. Worth mentioning, if Teclis is FAQ to know all spells, he can also give mortal wounds on 5s to the Stoneguard. Correct. Thank you, Aldum. Yes, when contesting an objective, you can also shoot them. That's also true. Yeah, that's fair. That's a fair point. And then the rune has been such a staple for me, a good consistent spell. So that's JP in the chat. So a lot of people are really enjoying, and Aldum in the chat is a long range on the cast on the rune as well. It's an 18-inch cast and it affects units within 6 inches. So and it procs twice, so really strong. And this went 5-0. So Gore Grunters 5-0 and new Lumineth Realm Lords 5-0. Important to note, this event wasn't using grand strategies and battle tactics from the battle tomes, which in my personal opinion is the right way to play Sigmar at the moment. But obviously everyone has their own opinion on that. So there we go. But 2,000 points. Great game. And yeah, you can go back and watch both those 2 armies play on the live stream on the T Sports Network. Right, let's take a look at the 4-1, shall we? So we had Fire Slayers run by Albin in 3rd place. He had a bunch of Auric Runesuns on Magma Droths. Magma Droths doing really good at the minute. Some Volkite Berserkers as battle line as well. But yeah, a bunch of Magma Droths doing really good. And that fantastic Molten Infernoth doing the work. Gabriel Fielder was running Uruk Warclans. He had some Uruks and some Gore Grunters. So the huge, as we say. But no, he did have a Mega Boss with the Arcane Tome. just the Arcane Tome all the time. Alex Herbeck, who we saw play in the final, was running Stormcast Eternals. He had a Celestant Prime, a Lord Relictor, a Battle Mage, 2 units of 2 Fulminators, some Libs, some Vigilers. I really like the Vigilers. Vigilers really stood out to me in this game. Really fun. You shoot a unit and everyone else around you gets +1 to hit against that unit until the end of that turn. It's really nice. Not that, obviously you've got all-out attack and you don't necessarily have tons of units in a Stormcast Eternals army, but 195 points is expensive. But they've got 2 shots apiece and they've got Rend. So I quite like the Vigilers. I thought that they were quite a nice little tech piece in this list, which I hadn't seen before. So I really liked him. That was really good. Stian Egbertson was also running Stormcast, Gardas, Draconis, Stormdrake Guard, and then 6 Raptors with long strikes. Gear was running Ironeth Deepkin with the Achillean King, Volti, Lotan, 10 Namati Thralls, and then 9 Morsar Guard, and then 2 units of 3 Morsar Guard, and some Tree Revenants. Really like what he did with this list as well. I like the double Tree Revenants for Barge to Enemy Lines for the additional point. I thought that was really good. Buffing up the 9 Morsar Guard was actually really interesting with the Achillean King and Volti and Lotan. So they get extra attacks, pluses to attack, pluses to wound. So, you know, you're really doubling down on just how much output those 9 Morsar Guard. Maybe this list was actually a little bit too early for the meta. Like, I think that this list is going to come into effect really heavily in the next 2 to 3 months. When you've got Gargant standing on objectives and Slaves to Darkness standing on objectives, etc. Although we did see 9 of them go into 10 Stoneguard and not kill them. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they're not the perfectly one. But there we go. Tom Batsford was running Sylvaneth, and he had a Crunchmine Incarnate list. And Jesper Melander, love that guy. He was running a Soulblight Gravelord's army in Legion of the Blood. Oh my god, I'm so excited. Manfred, Neferata, Prince Vordry, Vampire Lord and Zombie Dragon, and then 2x10 Death Rattles, 3x10 Death Rattles, Corpse Car, and then the Horrorghast. Don't forget Legion of Blood. Is it Legion of Blood the way you get the additional Runaway? I'm sure it is. Legion of Blood, you get the additional Runaway, I'm sure. Hero Helmet Soulblight, yeah, that's so cool. But it is. So you got Horrorghast, making it so you don't get Inspiring Presence and D3 additional Runaway, but also in Legion of Blood, an additional D3 Runaway, which is really great. as their kind of. I love that. Jesper just absolutely smashing it there. Love that. And it's all Hero Hammer. Manfred, great combat piece. Neferata with the Ignore Rend spell. Vordry, great combat character. Vampire and Zombie Dragon. And Jesper had a bad back, so he wanted a few middles to move. Oh, lovely. Okay, well, great list and super fun. And he went 4-1 with it. So great. William Carheg with Skaven. Vilna Warbringer, Engineer, Thankwall, some Clan Rats, and some Walt Lightning Cannons. Love that. That's great. Should be super happy with that. And then finally, Anton Sandström with Futhwan Einet Deepkin. 6 Alapexes, some Thralls and Leviathan. That is so many shots. That's 32 shots. 32 shots with a D3 damage at 24 inches. That's a withering turn. Really fun. Anyway, so that was the Lord of the Mounds 6, which happened in Uppsala. And again, if you want to go back and watch a load of that on Objective Zone, we've done that. Don't forget, we're doing Objective Zone streams from any events around the world. You just got to get in touch with us. And then we're going to help you do setup. You pay us some money, and then we help stream your events. It seems like a fair deal. Thanks for tuning in. Next up, we're going to Australia, and we are going to the Bendigo Bush Bash Bonanza Quad Bs there. So this is in Victoria in Australia. The Bendigo boys have loads and loads of tournaments down there amongst themselves, which is really great. And then when they travel over to like CanCon, which is a big Australian event, they always travel as a big group. So there's lots of like competitive gaming there, which means it's no surprise that we've seen like one of the newer armies do quite well at this event. Daniel Edwards with his Disciples of Tzeentch, Cult of the Transient Form army. So he's got a Fate Master, Kairos, and a Magister on Disc of Tzeentch, but unfortunately it's an Incarnate list, so that's pretty much all I'm going to... And it's got a bunch of Acolytes in. The Incarnate is pretty important, I guess, in the Tzeentch army for its ability to, like, pin your opponent in, so that you can just summon as much as possible and then shoot over the top, but ultimately it's an Incarnate list, like all the others. Okay, so let's look at the 4-1s. I've made myself so loud to myself there. The 4-1 section is where people won 4 and lost 1. That's what it means. Anyway, and my apologies for everyone as this happens, but Dalton was running an Incarnate list. Jason was running an Incarnate list. Damien Musi was running an Einet Deepkin list. And actually, we had a really good chat about the elements of this list. Had an Keelan King, Eidolon Mathlan, a Soul Render. It had 1 Alapex, 20 Thralls, another Alapex and another Alapex, and it had a Leviathan. And we really talked about, like, the Deepkin's win rate at the minute is between 45 and 50%. Like, it's okay, but I've rarely ever seen any 5-0s from Deepkin. Like, it's been very tough. There's been lots of people who've been big Deepkin fans for a long time, trying their hardest. The Deepkin book is pretty good, because it's not terrifying, but it also performs pretty well. I think you've got to play really hard to do really well with Deepkin, and it would be interesting to kind of talk about the nuance of what it might require for Deepkin to just push past that glass ceiling. And I feel like some points reductions, but there's been some good suggestions from the chat, specifically that maybe we see more damage on eels, maybe some more rend on some more units, or we get the Leviathan and the 2 Eidolons reduced down. We won't want to see some of the main combat units reduced, or the shooting units like Reavers or Thralls, mainly because, or eels, because effectively then all you're doing is spamming those units versus making a more cohesive book. So kind of interesting point from the chat, yeah, really fun conversation, but great work on going 4-1 there, Damien Musi. Anthony Rowe was running Nighthaunt, Scarlet Doom, so he was running 30 Bladegeist Revenants, Krulgas Cruciator, and Alrak the Drowner. Now, Alrak is making a big, big splash right now. He's in a boat. That's my joke. He's so he's got like the ability to teleport 2 units around the board. Feels like that's actually quite useful for this Nighthaunt army, because you've got some real range and some ability to move around the board, especially on some of the battle plans. So I quite like Alrak the Drowner, and you can see it working really, really well here, especially for some people who run double Cruciator. When you run the Krulgas Cruciator twice in the aura, you may, the Scarlet Vroom. Great joke. Yes, you could call this the Scarlet Vroom list. So Alrak down points, not down points, Alrak in the list, and I think that's a cool shout there. And then finally, in the 4-1 bracket, Sebastian Ulrichs was running a Crunchman Incarnate list. Anyway, if you get the opportunity to go over there, check out the Bendigo Boys stuff. Then they've got a YouTube channel, maybe a podcast as well, I think. And go see what those people are saying about all of their games. Okay, so our next event was the Shakespearean Invitational, organised by Shakespeare himself, somewhere in the world. I don't know where. It was in England though, like Canterbury. Is that a place? Somewhere there. Anyway, there's 32 players playing. Loads of members of Team Lit, love those guys, playing. But the big news of the day is our man Owen Jackson, the Owen Jackson. If you happen to have the Owen Jackson emotes in the chat as we're going for this live, the Owen Jackson went 5-0 with. If you remember the show when we did the meme about Reign of Stars, he took the Reign of Stars list. So from memes to dreams. That's a bit of Adam Mumford infecting everyone now. All sorts. Gavin from the USA also infecting everyone. There's people just taking all sorts of nonsense armies nowadays and just having adventures with them, and I love it. And Owen, who's been a perennial 4-1, has hit that 5-0 top, and I'm super happy for him. So, like, from me to him, my good and lovely friend, I love you, and I'm super happy you got this. It's got to have felt like everything finally came true, which was great. So, fantastic. So, he was running Hammers of Sigmar, Celestant Prime on Stardrake with the Master of Magic and the Arcane Tome. Yeah. And then Celestial Blades, Celestant Prime, and the Slan as an ally. 2x5 Liberators and the Dracothian Guard Fulminators, a unit of 4 of them, so 460 points. How 4 Fulminators are 460 points, I have no idea, but that's fine. And the unit of 3 Fast Riders. Now, the important part here is the Everblaze Comet and the Horror Gas Endless Spell, all in a battle reg. Get the choice to go first if you want. You can drop the Comet with the Slan or with the Stardrake. Stardrake's given +1 to cast out. Slan's got +1 to cast. Then you're doing Comet's Call from the Slan, then the Celestant Prime's dropping down and doing AoE Mortal Wounds, and then the Celestant Prime is doing his shooting attack, Rain of Stars, which is what the name is lifted off, and then the Dracothian Guard are just doing 4 Mortal Wound shooting attacks, and then they're just charging in. Horror Gas is making it so you can't take Battleshot tests. Solid list, really fun, really interesting, absolutely devastating first turn alpha list. Like, really well put together. I'm super happy for Owen, who's kept running it. After we did the meme weekend, I think he took it to 1, 2, and this is his 3rd event. So he played it 4 in a row. I think this is his 4th, and on his 4th outing. I think he went 4-1 with it at Nova, and maybe at Castle. And then he finally hit that big 5-0, so congratulations to him. Super cool list. And again, very much like we've seen from Gavin and a bunch of other people around the world, Jeremy Vissier is a good example as well. Just run some memes, have some fun, because when it happens, Rain of Stars going 5-0 is phenomenal stuff. Like, it's pure peak memes. I love it to pieces, and shout out to Owen for doing it straight. Right, okay, into the 4-1 category. And some very interesting news. Matthew Davies, Mr. Math Mallow, one of my favourite people, was running a Lumineth Realmlords Geometrica list, as was Shawnee Nishri, who was also running Lumineth Realmlords. But the important news, Shawnee doing really well, going 4-1, super happy for you, you're great. She also brought her dog to the event, who was walking around. That's some big news. That's some big news in my opinion. There we go. There's the dog. YouTube listeners, there's a very cute dog on the screen right now. The lists were Alarith Stoneguard. This is from Math Mallow. He ran double Alarith Stone Mage, Avelenor, and then double Caligrave. The very common article, it seems, between all of these Lumineth Realmlords lists that are running Geometrica, there's 3 now, 150, 241s, is using the command trait Unyielding Toughness, and then also using the artifact, the Molten Talisman. So Molten Talisman gives you +1 to wound to your weapon profiles, and the Unyielding Toughness things, I think it gives you the ability to give 1 unit +1 to its wounds characteristic. So he had a unit of 15 Stoneguard, so they would have gone up from having 30 wounds to 45 wounds, which I think is the really good 15, 10, 10. And then 5 Tree Revenants. So that's Matt's list. Like, really effective, really competent. And then Shawnee's list was Geometric again, Avelenor, Light of Altharian, and Tech list. And then a Stone Mage and Caligrave. And then only 3 units of 5 Stoneguard. And the Rune of Petrification. So you're really seeing some real interesting elements in these different lists. But they're also coalescing and making sense together like as what's really effective. Runic Petrification, something we're seeing a lot. Stoneguard, we're seeing a lot. Caligrave and Stone Mage. Again, the Molten Talisman. Again, Law of the High Peaks, Unbreakable Stoicism, so that's an immune to battle shock spell. Again. And then Avelenor making it into all these lists. That -1 to hit aura, the damage from Avelenor, the survivability of Avelenor. Like, just some really great stuff, right? Really, really strong, really interesting, and they're all doing really well. So yeah, absolutely love that. Baz Norman was running Marathi and the Bow Snakes. Lovely to Baz. Baz unfortunately lost to Owen, or fortunately lost to Owen, so Owen got his big 5-0 there. Greg was running Stormcast Eternals. Greg's just great. I don't know if you know Greg, but he's great. Was running 4 Stormdrake Guard, and Nitroconix with the Master of Magic and Arcane Tome, then Gardus and a Lord Castellan, and then some Vanguard Raptors. Greg, remember, a Team Wales, so I assume he's practicing some lists for the Six Nations event, which no one knows about. And then Mark Brooks, lovely fellow, was running Magickin of Nurgle. You're really strong. He was running Blessed Sons. He had Blobe, he had Gutrot Spume, Orgots, Morbidex Twice Spawn, and a Great Unclean One. And then he was also running 3x10 Rotmire Creed. And as a battle line choice, this is actually really, really interesting, because the battle line for Nurgle is really, really effective. It can be Puskal Blight Lords, it can be Blight Kings, it could even be Beasts of Nurgle if you have Horticulus in general, or maybe in the sub-faction, I can't remember. But like the Rotmire Creed, and you got Plague Bearers as well, they've got like a real like line of utility in their battle line units. But the Rotmire Creed is great as a battle line unit, because number one, it's very, very cheap. It's 125 points for a unit, which is one of the cheaper battle line units, which means then you get to take a host of characters like the Great Unclean One, Blobe and Orgots and Morbidex, who took all 3 Maggoth Lords and a Great Unclean One, so you've got 4 monsters there. You also do loads of disease points with the Rotmire Creed. So the Rotmire Creed can either be like a situational little choice. It also adds some shooting into the Nurgle force as well. And then it spreads the disease around really effectively. I'm unsurprised that this did really well. Mark's a competent player. But also this Rotmire Creed little pick is really fun. And I really like it. Those are all the 4 ones at the Shakespeare Invitational. Seems like everyone had a really nice time. And I'm sure there might be more in the future. But it's an invitational, so wait to be invited, I guess. Whatever. I hope everyone had a great time, and on to the next event. Okay, over at US Open Kansas City event, which is one of those events. Games Workshop events are always like where absolute sharks go and beat up some seals in what I can only describe as nonsense behavior. Like, stop it. You know you are. Stop it. Yeah, just like running 3 intro games and then having to play your friends in round 4 and 5 feels ridiculous. Anyway, the 5-0s at this event, this is in Kansas, was Gavin with Marathi and the Bow Snakes. What a superstar. What a charming individual. I got the opportunity to hang out with this guy recently, and they say don't meet your heroes, but it's fine. Like, just great people. Emma Mangles, also got to hang out with her recently. Great human being. Magickin and Nurgle. Easy peasy, not difficult. She had if it was an incarnate list, so like screw you. Tom Guan was running Daughters of Cain. I assume it was Marathi and the Bow Snakes. Like love Tom, one of my co-hosts for this year. Oh no, he didn't. He did the High Gladiatrix list. Oh, I'm so happy. Okay, so he was running High Gladiatrix, Slaughter Queen, Cauldron of Blood with the Arcane Tome, Covenant of the Iron Heart. Then he was running an Iron Scale with a Zealous Orator, which is a 4-up rally. 2 lots of 10 Sisters Slaughter, 30 Witch Elves, and then 2 lots of 10 Blood Sisters, so the Fighty Snakes, and then the Avatar Arcane Heart Fury. Love that list. That's actually super fun. That's super fun as a list. So well done to Tom there. All these sharks are great people. I'm confused. They are great people. This is super nice. This guy's super mean to me once, so I'm just not going to read his stuff out. Sean Clark was running Stormcast Eternals. He had a Relictor, some Libs, 2 lots of 4 Stormdrake Guard. Dear God. They're very cheap. Joe Cryer, what a babe. He was running Kairos, Fluxmaster. Does anyone in the chat and who's watching this video or listening to the podcast right now, without looking, able to tell me what a Fluxmaster looks like? That's my challenge. If you're like, I definitely know, before you start to talk about it, let me know. But yeah, anyway, so there's the Fluxmaster with the Eternal Shroud. So he's going to be able to recycle recycle Destiny dice. Kairos will generate new Destiny dice. The disc is in it. He's the guy on the disc. What a description for a Tzeentch army. Then you've got a Magister on a disc of Tzeentch with Arcane Sacrifice, and then Gaunt Summer on disc of Tzeentch. 30 Acolytes, 2 lots of 10 Acolytes. Oh, wait, no, wait. Just 3 lots of 10 Acolytes, sorry. 10 Ungor. Wait, I'm sure he had 30 Acolytes. No, Chronomantic Cogs, Burning Sigil, and then 6 Skyfires. Now, I actually think Skyfires are trashed here. But I spoke to Joe about this, and he said that he found them really, really effective in the game. So, something to learn there. And 2 units of Battle Reg in his list as well. So, well done to Joe. Leo's running Stormcaster or El Miller, sorry, was running Breaker Tribe, which I assume was some bigs, like it was some Gargants. So, well done to him. Gatebreaker, Gatebreaker, Gatebreaker. It was an incarnate list, actually. So, who knew? Well done to L. Triple Gatebreaker. Leo. Let's go, Leo. Leo Ratunen from the South London Legion is Celestant Prime, Night Draconis, Landstar Master, 3 units of Stormdrake Guard, and the Everblaze Comet. So almost a Reign of Stars list, but with some Stormdrake Guard as well. Their Stormdrake Guard is so good, aren't they, for their points? Like, people love them. Vito was running an interesting Lofnir Fireslayers list, which was something I haven't opened up as a list. Something good. It was something good. Vito's was my favourite list so far this week. Auric Runefather on Magmadroth, Runemaster Battlesmith, Runesong on Magmadroth, Volkai Berserkers, and then 15 Hearthguard Berserkers with 2 lots more of 10. I said that I think anyone doing well right now with Fireslayers is doing really well, because you don't have, like, your bounty hunters are just going to get you. It's just really impressive, in my personal opinion. Jared Brown with Lumineth Realm Lords and Derek Center with Lumineth Realm Lords. One was running Zytrek and a bunch of... one was running Helon and having a bunch of Sentinels, potentially getting extra shots while within 6 inches. And the other one was running some Starshard Ballistas, some Wardens, and some Dawn Riders with the Light of Altharion. That's the Light of Altharion. We've seen that twice now in the game. That's crazy. Johnny Britton was running Sons of Behemoth, and then Ryan Cavan was running Fleshy at Courts, and he's running Hollow Morn, which is a very interesting list, if I can find it. Nope. Here it is. Abhorrent Art Regent twice, Abhorrent Ghoul King, and then Ghoul King on Terrorgeist, and then Kado. But, and then Kritzer. 6 crit flares, and then 2 lots of 10 crit ghouls. Honestly, I don't know how I feel about this list. I don't really know what it does. Summons a lot, I guess. Because there's lots of characters to summon quite a bit here. The Abhorrent Ghoul King on Terrorgeist is really, really fighty. Kado's really fighty. Kritzer is an ally. And I don't know what that does. Like, this is one of those lists where I'm like, what the hell? It went 4-1 though, so congratulations to him, because that's amazing work. That's everything at the US Open. Well done to them. Our next event is in Norway. Was in Norway. The one I'm talking about is, but it happened in Norway in the past, so was. It was in Norway, and it's the Mjøshammer AOS Derby 2, and it features Lassie Kolberg going 5-0, and he was running a Hallowed Knight Stormcast Eternal list with Guard of Steel Soul and Night Draconis, 4 Stormdrake Guard, 2 Stormdrake Guard, 2 units of 5 Liberators, and then 5 Vanguard Raptors with Long Strike Crossbows. Yes. And there was no 4-1s. So again, Stormcast featuring very heavily. Quite interesting. We saw tons of Stormdrake Guard in the previous edition of the game, and now we're seeing still tons of Stormdrake Guard in this version of the game. The stonks on them are massive. I really would buy them even now, this Christmas, like around this time. I think that you've still got, I think you've got ages on them, to be honest. I think that they think it's fine, but they feature so heavily in 5.0 lists. If you look at their pick in all armies, it's probably lower, but they're very effective, and I would definitely pick them. So that was over in Norway, so shout out to them. In fact, actually, I can do the next one right off the bat right now as well, because the next one was the Halloween Spooktacular, held here in the TSN Arena. So shout out to the TOs, which was me and Adam Mumford. And the 5-0 from this event is actually pretty exhilarating. This is Daniil, and Daniil's got one of the first Legion of the First Prince 5-0s anywhere in the country, in the world, sorry, and it's pretty nuts. Legion of the First Prince, he's got the blue scribes. Now, that's the new blue scribes, so don't forget they know the laws from 2-spell laws, so they've got some real options on what they want to do in the game. Arcane Sacrifice is obviously good. Not Arcane Sacrifice, sorry. Arcane Suggestion is obviously very good. D6 Mortal Wounds is obviously really good whenever you want to do that, so that's really good. Then he's got Slaves to Darkness Demon Prince, and get ready, this may trigger some people, with the Mark of Khorne, so that you cannot, you have to half charges within 18 inches, but he's also got the Arcane Tome, right, with the, so that's pretty good, and therefore he's also got the Ruinous Aura, so he's got a 5-up ward save aura, so you can't charge this army, or you can, but you half the charge distances, and then for every unit within 18, and then it's got a 5-up ward, and I'm not finished. He then had 10 Bloodletters and 2 units of 5 Fleshhounds. Okay, fine. Fine, some battle line. Then he had 6 Screamers of Tzeentch, 6 more Screamers of Tzeentch, 6 more Screamers of Tzeentch after that, an additional 6 Screamers of Tzeentch, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units of 3 Screamers of Tzeentch. Bounty Hunters, Expert Conquerors, and Vanguard, and double Vanguard. So why did he have that? Right, I'm calling a flavour judge. I agree. So so what he did was he ran around the army like a castle. So he basically put all of the Screamers as kind of a front line, moved them forward, and then he would put the Khorne Demon Prince in front of it. You would try to run towards it and charge them. You would fail all your charges. Then his Screamers would fly over you and do mortal wounds, because when they fly over you, they do mortal wounds. And then sometimes charge you and then do even more mortal wounds, because when they fly over you in the charge phase, they also take mortal wounds. And then they would all have a 5-up ward save as well, thanks to this guy. And then he would keep summoning horrors from having the blue scribes from Legion of the First Prince. So Screamers, loads of wounds in this army, all with a 5-up ward. There's 160 wounds with a 5-up ward, and they all do mortal wounds. He can do on average about 20 mortal wounds in one movement phase. 20, right? Absolutely nuts. That's only £380 of Screamer kits. I agree. Shame the army's dead by January. Yes. So, yeah, there you go. That's the list. Well, the army, yeah, so you can't use the Legion of the First Prince in the future, but what you can do is take 20 pink horrors in the Host Duplicitous, so you can't retreat from them, and then just do the same thing. So you just charge in 20 pink horrors, get locked in combat, and then just fly as many Screamers over as you can, and you can never move away from it. So there's that version as well. So yeah, the Khorne Demon Prince playing like a castle, but a really exciting list. Super fun. Really, really cool. And then the rest of the lists, the 4 ones at the event, was Mr. Matt Goldsborough running Nighthaunt, and he was running Quicksilver Dead. And Matt and Daniil played against each other. Matt's only loss was to Daniil. He had a Krulgas Crusader and Alrak the Drowner. Second time we featured Alrak. And then 3 Spirit Hosts, 2 lots of 10 Dreadscythe Harridans, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 Hex Wraiths. 7 Hex Wraiths. 7 units of 5 Hex Wraiths. And some Banshees. And again, they would do something similar. They would move around, grab objectives, just playing a kind of different way. Really clever list to play. And really good. A shout out to everyone else at the event, like Hazel, Dom, Josh Jenkins, Charlie, Toby, Aidan, Phil, Randy, Andy, go on Andy, Leighton, Ben, all just great people. And I had a lovely time at that event. Finally, we had an event called the Corrupted Chalice. There wasn't many people. There's only 8 players playing in England. But do you know what? Dean Bryan deserves his day in the sun. Let's go, Dean. Dean went 5-0 with the Soulblight Gravelords list from Vrykros Dynasty, and he had Manfred von Carstein and the Vampire Lord. They had a Necromancer, Belladama, Redikar, 40 zombies, loads of Death Rattle skeletons, and then some Graveguard. So good job, Dino. I don't know if you're listening to this, but absolutely smashing job. And then Mark Paul was running some Sylvaneth. He went 4-1, and he took a photo of his list, and then he had a Warsong Revenant, an Arch Revenant, Spirit of Durthu, some Tree Revenants, some Revenant Seekers, and some Great Bows. Wonderful stuff. Absolutely wonderful stuff. Right, well, what can we make of the competitive scene this week? Well, Lumineth are landing with a splash, or with a mountain. I'm not really sure how to describe it. But it does seem like Stoneguard and Avelenor are definitely something to be conscious of. Absolutely brilliant stuff. Then you've got some memes becoming dreams. And or they aren't memes and they are just dreams, something to be conscious of. There's just some great stuff happening. You've got all of the Screamers, which is insane, doing really well. Then you've got Reign of Stars, smashing it and having a great time. You've got fun, different, dynamic lists doing well all over, which has been quite interesting. Sure, there's some Incarnates, of course. Tzeentch seem to be landing well and getting some event results. Lumineth Realm Lords landing, getting some event results. So overall, genuinely very interesting times. We're about to get new Slaves to Darkness. We're about to get new Ogres. And then we're about to go kind of into the December period where games generally tend to slow down as well, do tournaments. So you don't tend to get as much information. Then we get January, lands with a bang, and you get loads of event results. So I'm quite interested to see how we go into it, because that gives... We've had Tzeentch, Lumineth, we'll have Ogres and Slaves to Darkness, and all those books, as well as Gargants, of course, all those books, people have had time to go through what I call the production meta and build all of those armies. And then there'll be a new GHB in January. So I got to say, January is going to be crazy times. I hope. Maybe all of the stuff that's currently good continues to be good. Makes sense. I mean, I don't think I've read a single Seraphon list out today, which is great news. And I love that. But I think we're in a very exciting list writing time. We're in a very exciting playing time. We're in a very exciting kind of future leading into next year, new GHB. And I've got to give credit to Games Workshop for that. They've made a load of releases, and the releases definitely breathe new life into the game all the time. And then knowing that there's only 2 months left on this GHB before the rumours of the new... Well, we know the new GHB isn't a rumour, it's a fact. But we know the rumours are that Bounty Hunters and Galician veterans go away, and it's a completely new game state, is actually pretty thrilling, because that means even more list writing. So I'm very hype about the game right now, and I think it's in a great place. So there we go. That's my outro. I want to say thanks to the Twitch chat for hanging out with me today, and I hope you've enjoyed today's show.